on, boy.
No.
All right. Welcome back to the Balance Experience podcast. Here we are.
Hello, Jacko.
How are you, Nico?
Mate, I am fan-bloody-tastic. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I've got a I can't take a deep breath today though. I've got a bloody pain in my rib that is killing me today. But that's
Mate,
okay.
You should see a chiropractor.
I should actually. Yeah. So are you free after this?
Not really.
No, it's good to be here, Nico, and we've got a really good guest with us today. We've
Oh.
got Mr. Alessio Angelucci. How are you, mate?
Headphones on.
Welcome,
Very
dude.
good, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thanks
We've
for
got to put
having
the
me.
headphones
Oh,
on.
fuck
yeah.
Actually,
Otherwise, we can't hear each other. Ooh, look at that.
mad black ones.
Yes. Hello.
It's still been recording.
It's all good. It's all good, guys. Sorry for the listeners out there. We Jack wasn't prepared. We didn't put the headphones on.
That's all right.
Anyway,
We
So-
won't be restarting.
no,
We'll keep going.
let's keep going.
This is it.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, that's good.
You got us? Cool.
Hello.
Oh yeah, there it
man.
is.
Cool.
The sound of the golden tonsils.
Hello.
Alessio, welcome,
Fucking
dude.
mumbler.
I'm so glad you're here, dude.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem, mate. So, for those who don't know Alessio Angelucci, Alessio has, a really good story. Like a lot of people we've had on the podcast, but Alessio especially has a great story to tell. Ex-professional athlete, CrossFitter, gym owner. So, welcome, mate. Good to
you.
have you. Do you want to, just for people who don't know you or haven't heard about you or come across you, do you want to give yourself like a little bit of an intro?
Ooh.
It's always tough, isn't it?
Give yourself a rap, mate.
Yeah.
How do I start? Basically, at the moment, I'm just a gym owner. I love competing. I love pushing myself in all different aspects of life. I think that I've got to a point now where I'm very satisfied with where I am. I have a big past, obviously, in professional sports, in competitive sports, that I'm super grateful for. But for now, I'm super happy being the gym owner and the person that people can sort of look up to and learn from. And I get a lot more out of, I guess, teaching people things than I do out of my own success nowadays.
Great.
Wow.
Probably a big change for me. I'm still a very selfish person in a lot of ways, but
Okay.
in that way, I think that I feel like I identify with myself as more of that type of person than the athlete these days. you
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been a gym owner now?
About 5 months, 6 months.
Mm-hmm. And you've been working in gyms for a long time?
Not that long, actually. Like Tom and I always talk about how we sort of started PTing maybe 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
It was never something that we really wanted to go into. Obviously, we're both Tom with his footy, me with my baseball and CrossFit sort of vibe. We always wanted to make that work, but I think that we were never quite as dedicated as we could have been. I think we could have put a lot more into it, but there
As
was
PTs?
as athletes.
As athletes?
Yeah,
Okay.
very dedicated. But I look at the way a lot of other athletes nowadays put their absolute heart and soul into what they're doing, and I can look back and I can happily say that I probably didn't put as much time and effort as I needed to.
Okay.
Sort of hard for me to say, but at the same time, like, you live and you learn, and obviously I had other priorities that I got a lot out of as well. I mean, I wouldn't be with my wife now if I was still playing professional baseball in the US.
Fair
and
enough.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
So everything we did took us to this point. On the gym owner side of things, it's like, I think more than PTs, we're I guess, I don't know if you can say this, but people. If
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we get along with people and we understand people really well. We listen to them as much as we get frustrated with them at times. We still care very much about their happiness and making sure that their life is as good as possible. obviously fitness falls into that somewhere, but I think it's a lot more than that when it comes to owning a gym. You know?
That's super interesting. The history of you as an athlete, and I know you've called yourself selfish already.
Mm-hmm.
You've also called yourself that you probably didn't work hard enough as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
However, the results don't really speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The results don't really show that. The results are quite actually, you're a high level athlete.
Yeah.
So to think that you weren't working hard enough is a bit hard to fathom for someone who's not athletic. Well, maybe I am. Anyway,
Don't be so hard on yourself. Okay.
But obviously you've gone through some hardship.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like throughout your athletic career that's actually helped you to learn to become a people person?
Definitely. I think that my failures were the biggest thing for me. As a kid, I was never really picked in top sides. I never played for New South Wales, for Australia, for all those little things that you play for as you build through the ranks. So it was always
In baseball, right?
In baseball.
Yeah.
I always found that I was sort of behind the 8 ball. I was a natural athlete for sure, but I was always like very interested in the training side of things. I think from when I was like 16, my dad got me in the gym, and I was obviously super obsessed with building my physique and wanting to be as big and as strong
Jacked.
as my dad.
Yeah.
Like it was always priority number one, and that's probably led to a little bit of vanity, and as you go through your 16 to sort of 22s, you really only care about, I guess, what you look like.
So would you say, like with your baseball then, and when you say like maybe your priorities weren't completely on baseball, would you say a lot of your priority was on training during that period?
Definitely.
Maybe more the vanity than the performance side?
100%. And that's
I think a lot of people
I think
can
the downfall,
resonate with that. Yeah,
right, for sure. Like I look at a baseball player, and I look at the typical baseball player. The best in the world are like long, lanky, kind of vibe people, and I'm
Not jacked.
the opposite of that in my head. You know what I mean? In my head, I don't want to be this fucking long, lanky, tall person that throws hard. I want to be this like dominating, sort of looking force that's like on the mound. Yes, can play baseball, but I can also handle myself physically. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
That was always super important to me. I would always be the hardest worker, but maybe in the wrong areas, if that makes sense.
That's
for sure.
Wow. Okay.
If we rewind a little bit, where does your success with baseball start? Like, how old were you when you started to see a little bit of success in baseball?
I was actually quite old for an Australian baseball player. I was 19 when I signed.
Okay.
Had like a few scouts, I think, from the Cubs and a scout from the Padres come along and watch me work out and watch me hit some balls, throw some balls, train. And they do like a fairly big scouting process. They come to your house, talk to your parents, sort of get to know you a little bit before they make you an offer. The Padres ended up
Parents say
making...
good things about you?
Of course. I think my parents wanted me to go to college, and I did initially as well, and I kind of wanted to sort of experience that whole thing, but at the same time I was 19. I was like already going to uni at the time, studying PE teaching, and I was like, fuck, this sucks. Like I just couldn't even sort of concentrate for long enough to even focus on that.
19 sounds late as well for baseball.
Real late. And there was like a lot of resentment at that time as well towards like coaches and not being able to make it already, because I knew I was good enough, and I knew that I was never in the right place at the right time. I never made a coach happy enough to pick me, you know what I mean? I would always like fuck up in the wrong areas, or you get to like a trial and you like make a bunch of errors and you're like, that's not really me, you know. So you'd always let your head get in the way. There's a lot of pressure.
Sure.
But basically went to this tryout, got an offer from the Padres. It was like, I think it was like 30 grand at the time, and I was like, fuck, I'm taking it.
You know, that's awesome.
I could have waited a little bit.
That's a shit ton of money for a 19.
Especially not having anyone pay attention to me beforehand. Was like, fuck, this is a dream. I'm taking this, you know. And it was a pretty easy choice for me. From there, they actually changed my position. So before I even went over, they signed me as an outfielder and a hitter. Before I went over, they were like, "Oh, you know what? You throw really hard. I think that you should just put the bat away and focus on pitching." And I'd never really pitched before, so it was like the whole process was basically get me ready to be a pitcher, and then I would basically learn to pitch when I got there. So like my first professional inning was my first ever inning, really. You know?
Shit!
So,
wow. Okay.
That was a mental battle. I think the first year was really good. It was all just natural talent sort of taking over, so it was quite fun for me. It wasn't as serious yet because I thought that I had all this time in the world. And then came to like second and third year, I got the yips, which is
the what?
The yips.
What's that?
It's a golf thing as well.
Yeah,
the yips.
What are the yips?
It's like in baseball terms. Well, let's go through golf terms. Golf terms, like these guys sink like 1-2 foot putts.
Oh, right.
All day, every day.
It's where your body just
learns.
learns how to do, unlearns how to do it, just a repetitive motion you've always done. So, in golfers,
that's happened to me.
In golfers,
cricket.
it's like when they forget how to chip.
And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? I can't hit this shot right now.
It's like a completely mental thing. So, what is it in baseball?
So, baseball for me was I could stand there on the mound, throw the ball as hard as I wanted to the catcher. As obviously I wasn't as accurate as other pitchers. I was throwing harder, so the accuracy was a little bit off. But for the most part, I could sort of pick where I wanted to throw it. As soon as someone hit the ball back to me, I'd pick the ball up. I'd go to throw it to first base to throw the guy out. Yeah. And the ball would fucking fly into the stands.
Yeah, I've heard that before. You just forget how to throw it to first, eh?
Yeah, pretty much. You like
really?
I couldn't pick off, like, you know, you can throw the ball to first base before you pitch it. I just couldn't, it's almost like you lost feeling in your fingers.
There's a dude in the MLB right now who's going through that. I can't think of his name though. I don't know if you watch it, but anyway, moving on. But it's interesting that
there's a lot of them that have like gone through it, and it's kind of weird because it's like it's such a big thing. I think in a lot of minor league baseball players, but they don't really talk about it, and they don't treat it like an injury either. Right. So it got to the point where I had it like the year before I got released. I had a really good year. It was spring training, and I was sort of going through a little bit of the yips, and they could see that my confidence wasn't quite there.
Yeah.
They basically called me in, said, "Hey, it's not quite there this year." I was only throwing like 92 miles an hour when I was throwing 95 miles an hour last year, which is completely normal for spring training anyway. But I think it was like they weren't really willing to sort of bear with me in that time.
Hang on, you said something just there that I want to dive into a bit. You said that they don't treat yips like an injury.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, like, it's almost a get the fuck over it and get it sorted sort of thing. It's not like, oh, you've got a labrum tear, let's do this and this to get there. Yeah.
So how would you manage? I don't know, like what it sounds like a brain issue when you're dealing with the yips. I'm still getting familiar with this term as it is.
So in the NBA, there's the number one draft pick, I think, probably 2 years ago. His name was Markel Fultz. He went through this. He was a great shooter, like sinking free throws all day, and then he gets to the NBA, and his technique just completely changes, and he can't sink a free throw. This is like 2 years ago. He's still going through it, and he.
So how would someone manage an issue like this?
Yeah, I mean it's all psychological, right? What did you find?
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Surely it's not mechanical.
Honestly, it got to a point where I completely changed positions. So I went from, once I'd got back from being released, I went through a period where I just was like, fuck this, I'm not playing baseball anymore. Played rugby league for about 3 years for an A grade team down in the beaches. And I was like, sort of had to just completely forget about it. When I went back to it, it was like sort of not there anymore, but it's still there, like revisits in my mind a little bit sometimes. I turned into a catcher after I got back, so I went from pitcher to catcher, and I just found that the throwing motion of being a catcher agreed a lot more with me mentally.
Wow.
So it sort of just went away. I don't know if that...
Well, like, it's resonating with me, and that's why I'm curious, because not only did it happen when I was batting, like I couldn't hit a leg glance, like, which is a fucking... it's a bread and butter shot in cricket.
Yeah.
Like, it's off your pads. It should be 4 runs.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've missed this, the amount of times I've missed this shot is like I would have scored at least 3 centuries.
Yeah.
Right? That also happened to me catching. So I used to be really good out, like in the outfield, but my ability to catch just there was one game I dropped 4 catches. I don't know what the fuck happened to me.
Yeah.
But dead set, it's like
worse,
I even got my eyes checked.
Yeah. And Alessio, I know you're getting into golf lately, aren't you? Have you noticed it in golf? It's an issue in golf, mate.
Not at all. Not at all, honestly.
That's your excuse for being shit.
Nah. I sometimes stand over a ball and I just can't pull the trigger some days. Like,
really?
It's just,
yeah. I think it's probably more.
Funny how much our
common
brain
in
gets
golf,
in the way, eh?
Like especially in like amateur golfers, like that 2-foot putt must be like the hardest putt in the world.
Of course,
like it's. For me, it hasn't affected my golf at all because I haven't played enough golf
to
start to think about it.
They'll come, mate.
So I like honestly, that's probably why I avoid playing golf in a serious sort of way.
Yeah,
right.
Like Tommy and I will go and play, and some weeks we'll play like twice a week, and I'll see myself starting to like think about it, and you're like, fuck, I don't want to even get into this. Like,
right.
I just want to play it for fun.
Who's Tommy?
Tommy Leatherby.
Yeah.
He's probably my best mate now, I guess,
Right.
if you think about that. Sorry, Tommy, if I'm not your best mate. I
just want to know who Tommy was. Like,
he trained with us at Athletics. So I guess I met him at Fitness First back in the day. We were doing like a lot of bodybuilding sessions, and I guess he was like one of those dudes you look over and he's training with his mate doing an arm pump and I'm doing fucking chest, and you sort of know each other through that sort of thing. And then we bumped into each other at Athletic and started training together. Just long story short, I went over to Chocolate Box at one point to be a coach. He also came over, so I sort of got him a little gig there, doing a couple of hours a week. Once COVID came around, there was like a little bit of a not falling out, but I guess we just sort of parted ways with Chocolate Box. And then from there, we've been sort of inseparable, I guess. We sort of had a
Nice.
very common interest. He's amazing human, family man. He's got twins, got a beautiful wife, very similar to my wife. We just got along in every way, both
Cool.
ex-athletes, very similar way of thinking. We both have the same aspirations. We both want to still go to the CrossFit Games and be the best in our craft, I guess. And we both really, really love coaching, Like it wasn't so much about building a gym. It's us wanting to be the best coach that we can be. And I guess that's what's different about our gym in a way, is that we really, really want to be involved in everything that we do there. It's not like create a gym, get some coaches, get them to coach and step back. It was like almost the opposite.
Do you feel like there's a difference? Do you feel like there's a relationship between what you experienced going through the yips, how you were treated, and how that's taught you to treat others now?
Definitely.
So
definitely.
I'm really curious. What has it taught you?
I'm a lot more, I guess, patient with people who are going through a mental struggle. Physical, anyone can get through something physical, if it's hard, you've either got it or you don't, you know what I mean? Mentally, I think there's a certain patience that you need to show to actually get the best out of someone. I think I've developed a good way of reading someone's personality to be able to relate with them and make them feel comfortable in a situation. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's the best part about, I guess, working with people on a daily basis, is that you walk away and you're like, fuck, that was like that was really nice to be able to get through to them in that way, and to see someone's mind sort of just flick the switch and just be like, oh yeah, okay. No matter how many times, obviously it's probably going to take them a lot more times than one conversation to get through to them. But I think it's definitely helped me to be a lot more open-minded. I think I would have been a lot more narrow-minded as a younger sort of adult, and I would have been more like, get the fuck over it and move on. But now I'm like, there's definitely a big correlation between like nerves and I guess not having confidence in your own ability, I guess, to your athletic ability. You know what I mean? Wow. Like if there were a way of making young athletes be able to believe in themselves and just back their ability, there would be some fucking insane athletes out there.
So what is the issue, do you find, with the higher level coaches? That do you feel like there's not enough praise? And
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I found that a lot. I found that their patience for failure was not quite there. And I still actually remember the first throw that gave me the yips, because it was a rainy day, and it was the first day of spring training. We all got out on the field. We were just sort of playing catch for the fun of it, and I let go of a ball, and like a baseball gets like wet and slippery. It was like a bar of soap. Got slippery, let it go, almost hit one of my coaches that was just standing on the hill, and he was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like fucking lost his shit. Like, because obviously they're looking, all they want is like
that ball would have got launched in the wrong direction.
It was not good. Like, and it was like first day of spring, like you want to come in and be perfect, right? And that's the thing, like they want to just be, they want everything to be perfect, and there's no variance.
You reckon they're just missing out on some talent a lot of the time just because of the lack of patience?
I think that they're not really tapping into people's subconscious, I guess, and that's what it is your subconscious not believing in yourself, and it's that fear of failure and that fear of disappointing someone else. I think a lot of people go through it, and they don't say anything, and I think that a lot of those old school coaches with their old school approaches are like probably killing a lot more talent than they are doing good. For those insane athletes that are like naturally just, I guess, hard-headed and can see past all that sort of stuff, then they'll be able to get through. But
but I think that's a rare. They're the rare athlete. They're your Michael Jordans. You don't. He didn't need a fucking coach to tell him whether he's going well or not.
No,
but that's an anomaly, isn't it?
But he's an anomaly.
I don't think he cared. He
didn't. He knew he was better than everyone anyway.
There could have been some more Michael Jordans out there that just weren't.
That just
needed
some confidence.
100%.
Talent-wise, at least. So, during your baseball as well, like in terms of physical injuries, did you have many physical injuries, or you're pretty lucky?
Literally, like the worst that would happen was like a little bit of like fluid build up in the elbow.
Typical elbow.
Like that.
So that finishes a lot of baseballers, the Tommy John.
Tommy John. Like a lot of them come back from Tommy John better. But
for those listening, Tommy John is a type of elbow issue on the inside of your elbow from whipping the ball through the pitch, and usually you need surgery to correct that. Because is it the tendon that's
your
UCL ligament?
The UCL ligament just becomes very lax, and they need to tighten that up. But then is it more the fact that they keep on redoing it, or is it?
It's a repetitive strain thing.
It's a repetitive strain,
and there's like some good evidence as well that like pitchers also have adaptive like rotator cuff tears over time as well. Just from that like just amount of external rotation you go through.
If you look at a baseball pitch in slow motion, it's like
it's massively ranged.
The hands like below
long
the
way.
shoulder. You know? It's kind of like scary when you look at it in slow mo. But
it is literally like one more degree, and the shoulder should be out of its socket.
Literally.
You
can look at some of those long whippy dudes. It's ridiculous.
It's a long way.
The amount of torque that they get from that shoulder.
That's why most of the pitches are going to be long bean poles, because they basically need to be just elastic slings.
It's
Yeah,
leverage, right?
the levers
Yeah.
would have bigger. We're getting into some nerdy stuff here, but like levers would have a lot to do with.
Yeah, I
the
was
amount of
actually
torque
looking
you
at this humerus.
can-
Alessio's humerus compared to his forearm's quite a lot longer, and I just wonder whether you're better off having longer humeri.
Yeah, probably. That's going to be a lever point, isn't
It's
it?
going to be
So,
a lever point.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
it'd be like using your glute for a deadlift.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
there you go. No,
Correct.
cool.
Anyway, interesting. All
So
right.
you're pretty
Pretend
lucky
like I
then
know
with
what you're
physical
saying.
injuries. So it sounds like,
Pretend like I know what you're saying.
yeah. Yes.
but it sounds like baseball. More the limiting thing with the baseball was the yips over time.
Yeah, I'd, honestly, like that definitely would have been it.
Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't the
Um,
humerus length.
The
What was
the-
your transition out of baseball then? When did that come to an end?
that was actually really, really tough for me. I think, and I say this to a lot of people. Like I used to be quite religious, not very, very religious, as in go to church and do all that sort of stuff. But like every Christmas we'd go to church, every Easter we'd go to church, not on a weekly basis. And I used to have this little like ritual every single night, really, that I would pray, and I'd be like thankful for everything. I'd ask for all this stuff from God, and I would be like, please help the sick, please help me to be better at baseball, please help me to think more kindly about people and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, when I got released was the first time that I stopped praying, which was like a massive thing for me. And I kind of just gave up, and I was just like, you know what, like, I've done everything right.
Yeah.
In my head, I was the hardest worker there. You know, I would win all the fitness tests. I would win anything that we ever did. I was by far the hardest worker. And for me, getting released was like a slap in the face. And I was like, you know what? I'm willing to fucking put my ass on the line for you, and you're not willing to just stand by me while I go through some mental shit. It was like,
So it sounds like there was
I'm
some
done.
resentment
Yeah,
at the end
yeah.
to the sport.
yeah, to
potentially.
the sport. I got home. I was like, I'm not playing baseball anymore. My parents were pretty supportive about it. I felt like I needed to sort of get some things out of my system, so I started to play rugby league. I played soccer for a little while, sort of refound my love for soccer, and then maybe 2-3 years later, I ended up getting an offer to go play in Italy baseball.
Yeah, right.
Took that. It was like sort of reignited my passion for it. And then I met Amy, actually. I flew Amy over to Milan to see me. And I ended up sort of almost wanting to like go home and just start a normal life. You know what I mean? Like the athlete life is definitely really, really fun. And it's like, I loved being by myself. I loved living in a hotel. I loved the whole freedom of it all and not having a job. But at the same time, it's like everything's on hold. All of my relationships had gone to shit because of what I was doing. You know, like there was obviously I had a girlfriend most of the time when I was in the US, and that was obviously not a very healthy relationship because I was a young piece of shit back then.
Yeah.
And it sort of put everything
Retrospective
in,
of you.
Yeah.
I put everything into perspective, and I was like, when Amy came over, I was like, fuck, I just really love this person, and I don't think that I can actually do this to this person
Wow.
on a regular basis. I don't think I can go away for 6 months at a time and just pretend like everything's about me. You know what I mean? Before I was like, you know what? Any girl that I meet, baseball's first, and that's that. You know, and that's the kind of attitude that I had towards it. But this time it was like, you know what? I really like this person. I've liked her since I was 14 years old.
Wow.
I want to give it a proper go. And I actually got injured when she came over. When she left, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of ready to just fucking go home and start a normal life.
So you're like, it's either I'm going to do rehab or I'm actually going to go spend time with someone I genuinely
Yeah. I just you just find
Slash
yourself
love.
like it's almost it's quite an empty life. Like I don't know if you've ever been an athlete or if you've experienced that life at all, but it's not. It's quite lonely. You're thrown in with a bunch of guys that you just have to get along with, and lucky for me, I got along with like pretty much everyone that I ever played with. There was never any issues, but you leave everyone you love at home, and it's like fuck, everyone's getting along with their lives, and to be honest, you get back, and it's like 5 years later, I've done nothing. Like, what have I done?
At the end of the day, when you're being friends with the other athletes that are in your team, like it turns into a bit of a brotherhood or sisterhood. But really, when push comes to shove, will you choose your continual career or will you choose that relationship? And if it means that it's either you or the other person, it's like how is
and professional sport is very fickle as well, right?
Yeah,
like
it has to be.
Unfortunately, like the reality of is that you're one injury away from it all being over.
Yeah.
So how deep are these relationships really?
They're not.
Yeah, I'm sure there'd be the one or two really close relationships that are like not defined by which club you're in or, but when it comes to like, you know, if you're friends with someone that's also a pitcher.
Yeah, and that happened to me. That happened to me like on multiple occasions where my best mate was there and he'd get released, and then I find another best mate and he'd get released, and I find another best
like
mate.
how is that good for you?
You know,
that's not good for you.
It's not at all.
No.
It's very lonely, and it's you. And I tell people this all the time now, and I probably shouldn't. I think you need to think very, very hard about what you want in life. And if your goal is to be an athlete and to be the very best at that sport, you better fucking make sure that you're the best at that sport. You know? And there's a Major League Baseball player, and this was what kind of opened my eyes to life after sport. A guy called Rick Ankiel. He wrote a book. I forgot what the book was called, but it's probably the only book that I've ever read. And it's sort of, by the end of the book, it had me in tears a bit. And it was like, that was the moment that I realized that all this time I'd spent so much of my life worrying about, fuck, I want to be a professional baseball player. That's all I want to do. I'd never even thought of what the fuck happens afterwards. This guy had a 20-year major league career, gets to the end of his major league career. No one gives a shit about him.
Mate, it's a massive issue in professional sport.
It's terrible. It's like, it makes me second guess whether I want my son or daughter to follow that path.
Wow.
Thankfully in Australia now, we have like systems set up. Like I know in the AFL and in the NRL, like all the professional players have to have some sort of like tertiary education going on whilst they're playing.
Yeah.
Which, you know, hopefully sets them up for some sort of career after professional sport. But you know, in situations like yours where you're, you know, bouncing between countries and different, you know, it's going to be always very tricky to set up a career when you're in another country that's not that's not your native country as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And especially in America where like it's all about America and you're just as good as the dude from Texas, but that dude from Texas has like an obvious I guess upper hand by having something in common with the coach or having like there's always something that's going to be subjective, right? I don't care who you are. I as a person have subjective views on people, and I don't think that I could separate my subjective views from picking someone over someone else based on like their personality, based on how they interact with other people,
100%.
based on all of this shit that they're not really taking into account.
Yeah, and
you know?
I often wonder, like when you're watching the Olympics and you're watching, say, the diving or gymnastics, and they give them a weird ass score, like 8.36 recurring,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, how?
Yeah.
How did you get to that?
You're not a robot. Who
Is
the
this
fuck- who the
a
fuck are you to
quantitative
tell me that
analysis
that's the
or?
score, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. In terms of like, so you've come back. So let's say you've come back. You've come back for Amy, your wife,
Mhm.
and
Let's not say I've come back for her because she'll feel very
no,
bad.
Oh, mate.
But
come on,
Get some brownie points
that's
out
the
of
truth,
this.
bro.
I think she'll feel bad about that. But
No, it sounded like
But
it
honestly,
was very much your choice.
I
Like,
do tell her all the
like she was
time. Like
forced
that's what changed. That's what changed everything. you know,
yeah, wow,
for sure.
and that's huge, right? Like your heart for people won over your own desire for sport, and that's sort of it's lending towards what we've been talking about in being in the people. You're a people person in the industry of gym ownership, and so it's almost like that's won your heart. A person has won your heart more than the sport itself. So when you've come back to Australia, when did you start doing CrossFit?
It was, let's just say 5 years ago. When was that?
2015.
Okay. Let's say
today's been a long year.
Yeah.
let's say the
March 2020 was 5
the
years
20
ago. Feels like it.
Yeah.
like I don't know exactly, but let's say the 2015 2016 CrossFit Open
Yep.
would have been my first Open.
Right.
And then, so that was obviously at CrossFit Athletic in Monavale. And then I sort of made my way down to
you started
Brookie.
in Mona. Oh, right.
Yeah, with Shauno and Tash. And then made my way down to Brookie. Obviously did that whole peak program,
Yep.
all of that. And to be honest, that was like, for me, a sport that I get to be fucking jacked, and that's literally my sport.
Yeah.
To be as
Jacked and competitive.
To be as athletic as possible, and obviously there's so much other skill and all that stuff that goes into it, but me as a perfectionist, getting to perfect those skills was like, this is a fucking dream of a sport, you know. Like I get to lift weights, and that is what I'm doing as my sport as well.
So can I ask a question? And I've heard, I can't remember who told me this, but someone who knows you. But basically, the story was that the first time they took you.
Oh shit!
Do you know this?
No.
First time they took you.
No, it's
can't remember
to
what
do
it
with
was.
a barbell. It's okay.
First time you went to CrossFit Athletic, first time training CrossFit, and before that you'd just been doing like your bodybuilding training or whatever.
Yeah.
That you did 140 kilo clean.
It was disgusting.
Yeah. Is it true though?
Like, I think it would have been between 130 and 140.
Okay, it's true.
It was a power clean.
Yep.
It was like it was
So
great.
never done a clean before.
Never done a clean
Just
before.
straight to
but I
three.
could-
Just straight to 130
I
odd.
could definitely
power
make
clean.
sense of.
Fuck.
It was probably honestly like 4 months in. Like,
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been the first time I picked up a barbell. First time I tried an overhead squat was the most disgusting thing ever. Like
Yeah.
it was like I couldn't even make my way down. I couldn't even hardly bend my knees, you know. But Sean sort of set that all straight very quickly. He made me, I guess he brought me down to earth a little bit, which was probably the best thing that I've ever done. Actually just pulling back and listening to someone about lifting weights and I guess taking in everything that I could. And the funny thing was I learnt more from the people that moved badly than I did from the people that moved really well. Like every skill that I picked up was from seeing someone do something wrong, and that's kind of when everything kicked in, and I was like slowly starting to see this momentum build up, and it was just like very, very quick, I guess, what would you call it, adaptation to
Skill
the
acquisition.
sport. Yeah. Like it was.
So it came pretty natural to you.
Yeah. I think just because I loved being in the gym. I loved that whole environment, and I just got to do what I loved finally. You know.
Awesome.
So you then, like, I haven't heard that you've had many injuries in this lead up. So I know that you've had a few.
Yeah.
So what are some of the major ones that you've had along the way? Like, obviously you had that medial elbow.
Basically, I've torn my MCL off the bone. That was a
Right
stupid
knee.
injury.
Baseball injury or?
No. I I was installing garage doors. After I got back from baseball, I installed garage doors for about 5 years.
With Scotty.
Just in a nutshell. My uncle's business.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was like,
okay.
It was just like, that was probably not my
Did it have its ups and
proudest years
downs?
as an athlete, but it was like...
What's that?
I said, did it have its ups and downs?
It definitely
Oh my god! No, you did not.
definitely did. There was a roll door on the top of the ute, and I was like paranoid about damaging doors, and I looked over at it, and I hadn't had it tied down, so it was like obviously one of those big roll things, and it was rolling off the ute. So I sprinted over to the ute, did like a slide tackle underneath the door where it was about to fall,
Right.
and the door just fucking landed on my knee,
Oh.
tore my MCL off the bone.
Dude.
And I didn't know I'd done it at the time, so I like sprinted up the driveway, and my fucking leg was like hanging off.
Jesus.
And then like a couple of weeks later, I got a scan and it was like torn off the bone. But that's like short story. Basically,
Far from.
patella tendonitis.
Although the slide tackle component makes it sports
Yeah, it
injury.
was- it
yeah,
was
yeah.
super
It's a
cool.
slide tackle. Yeah.
Patella tendonitis ongoing, or tendinopathy, whatever you want to call it.
On the other
Obviously,
side.
you know how bad it's been. Honestly, other than that, like a few broken thumbs. I've got like a few plates in my hand, like just from baseball slides and all that sort of stuff. But honestly, like nothing significant.
It's pretty awesome, because like I've definitely found that some of the like when it really comes down to does chirophysio enhance someone's ability to perform? You can't say yes, but you can say that if you have a really long run of being able to train uninterrupted, the gains that you get from that for having no breaks allows you to then continually progressively overload and deload and structure your program with no interruption.
I think I said this in the podcast we did together, Nico, but like in my footy growing up, and the guys who've made it in the AFL, like obviously they're very talented, but they're the ones with the best longevity as well.
And sometimes that's genetic, and
Yeah.
sometimes like you are just you're robust.
They were just able to keep training, keep playing.
Some people just fall apart.
just more minutes under the belt.
Like dudes with hamstring injuries, like how much, like they're definitely like, I guess, genetically predisposed to it because of their levers, because of like little
just their collagen
intricacies
type.
It's like, I feel like if you're one of those people, you're just one of those people that are just injury
Or even-
prone, you know what I mean?
Baseball pitchers who have like a big carrying angle, they're going to be more prone to UCL tears and things like that. So there's definitely genetics playing to it.
So then you eventually came in to us as you like how far into your training were you when you eventually presented to us with that hip issue?
Probably 2 years into CrossFit, maybe possibly into my third.
Had you
year.
gone to the games yet at that point?
No. I'd done a couple of comps. I'd done like D-Mark and like all those little ones down the coast.
Yeah.
I think the most recent one there would have been like that BTS throwdown, but nothing serious. We were just gearing up to go to regionals with that team of 6, like Mitchie, Harry, Dom and Tash and all those guys. But then that was the year that all the girls went individual, so we had
that's
we
right.
had no girls, which was cool to see them go individual anyway. But that was the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us about what you felt and we'll get to what it was in the end.
Basically, sort of was getting a lot of referral pain down the left side of my leg into my glute. Had like a little bulge on that pelvis side, the left side of my pelvis, I guess. And I was getting like a lot of what is that sciatic pain?
Sciatic pain.
Yeah, sciatic pain basically. Like at night, I would get a lot of discomfort when I trained. Sometimes it would be gone, to be honest, like there would be no pain, but I think that might have been from the anti-inflammatories that I was taking at the time. When you're obviously training for CrossFit, you lose, I I guess, sight of what an actual injury is and what you being a weak person is.
Yeah. You're just perpetually sore.
Yeah, you just sort of expect to be sore, and I was like, okay, this is probably normal. Like, I have a little bit of back pain, like maybe I've got a bulging disc or something like that, but I'm sort of willing to push through it. And then I came to see you guys, probably went to a bunch of other physios just to like sort of get an idea of what was going on. A bunch of physios would have like needled it and played around with, and by it I mean the bulge on my pelvis. But it went for probably how long? Like maybe
it went for a while.
8 months.
Yeah, I suppose it was on and off in terms of treating you, and then it was like, I think a lot of work was done by our man Richard Khan, and I think it's funny because it was never persistent enough for you to need to be persistent as well.
No,
and it's like you'd present mechanically, so it would be like, I get pain after I squat, this, that, and the other. And when we talk about it retrospectively, and you look at all the potential red flags that are there, it's like, oh yeah, sciatic night pain. There's a bulge, a mechanical bulge there.
Yeah,
it's like,
I probably left out night sweats when you probably asked me the first 1,000 times.
Was the pain pretty severe early on, or?
It was at times, like Nick said. It's
transient.
like, fuck, you just don't know. Like, I don't know the difference between like a real pain and something that's just trivial. You know what I mean? So, and I wasn't willing to let it affect my pursuit to go to the games at that time either. So we were looking to go to regionals at that time, and I was like, fuck that.
You were subconsciously telling yourself that it's nothing. It's nothing. Yeah.
It's fine. Long time 50 done. You know.
Yeah.
I know that, man.
Yeah.
I
think it wasn't until I think it was Rich that just said to you, hey mate, like, how long are we gonna fucking just try and manage the symptoms here? Like, how long has this been going on for, A, and B, how are we going to get rid of this, because you shouldn't have this? It was a good call by Richard.
Very good call.
By that time, was your gut feel that something wasn't right?
Honestly, my whole life, I've been petrified that I have cancer in some way. It was funny, we went to the running track at Narrabeen, and it was probably the worst that my hip has ever been, or my at the time I thought it was my glute, and I thought it was torn or something. We were running around the track, and I had to like stop, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, it felt like my hip had like impinged, and I couldn't even like move.
Right.
So I was like, 10 minutes before, I was sprinting my ass off, like racing Harry down the track, and after a while I just had to stop, sort of turn around to everyone, and I was like, fuck, what if I have cancer? Like, what if I'm like, what if this thing's like a tumor in my hip or something like that, you know?
Were you actually saying that?
Yeah, legit was saying that. Like, Hannah Cheminsky was
Far
there,
out.
Harry was there. I was like, fuck, what if it's cancer? And they were like, no, it's not fucking cancer. It's fine.
So you deep down did think
I
something.
think so.
Yeah.
I honestly, like, I've always been paranoid of it. So, I mean, I probably, I always forget this word with the M. What's that word? With the M?
Malakatani.
Manifest. I was convinced that I manifested it over my whole life, you know, of just being stressed about money, about being sick, about not making it, all that sort of stuff, you know. But yeah, what were we talking about?
At the track, yeah.
The track, and manifesting, essentially, almost like creating a reality.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I put it down to that. Like, what else could it be? Like, it's not genetic. It's not anything like that. I think the stress has a big factor. I mean, there's a lot of things that I wasn't happy with at the time, you know, and I think that it could have come out sideways and turned into something.
Who knows?
It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
It's obviously a very what you're talking about is a metaphysical, energetic way of looking at life, and I definitely resonate with it. I also look at it and I'm like, yeah, but there's also science. The science that we know, and then there's also the science we don't. And so, can you create something that you just manifest on? I fucking think so.
I think so.
But can we explain that? No. But anyway, let's not get too deep.
So it sounds like yourself and Richard probably at roughly the same time were thinking, okay, like this is going on too long. Like, let's take this next step and figure out what's happening.
Because what should happen? Like, so if you're getting hip pain, it should respond in a progressive and predictable, reasonable progressive. It should be predictable in a reasonable time frame.
And it should match the diagnosis as well.
And it should, it should match what's actually going on. Yes. Definitely. And so the fact that it wouldn't started to raise alarm bells.
Sure.
You know, like we hear, and this is the thing with red flags, right? Like healthy, how old are you?
2017. So...
Are you 30? Were you 30?
29.
You were 29. So you're healthy 29-year-old, athletic background. We're getting some glute pain because he fucking trains his ass off. He happens to get night pain, which could just be inflammatory and fatigue. And he also gets night sweats, which could be because he's fried his nervous system.
And I'm fucking sleeping in a one-bedroom apartment in fucking DY.
It could just be that he's hot. You know, like to get this right and to look past all the most likely causes of all his symptoms, it's like you could let that go on for heaps longer.
Yeah, definitely.
If I wasn't training, I probably wouldn't even have noticed it, to be honest.
Well, yeah. I mean, the fact that you were loading it is the reason why. Well, one of the reasons why.
I noticed it till later, at least. Yeah.
Maybe the night sweats would have been more obvious then.
Yeah.
So what between? No reason. So you went and got this MRI. So there's obviously a delay between the MRI and the results. What was that time like?
So the whole process was like, when I went to get the MRI, I was I get kind of weird in that sort of setting, and I was like literally came out of the MRI wet, like dripping wet. And I got out and I was like, it was after like 40 minutes in the MRI machine, and the lady was like, hey, you got to go back in there. We want to put some coloured dye through your system just to see something.
Right.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty normal. Was like, fuck, I got to do it again. Did it again. Came out dripping wet again. The lady was like, okay, we'll send your results to the doctor. That was on the Friday. It was my birthday, actually. We went away for the weekend, Ames and I. On the way back, I messaged Rich and I was like, hey, what's up? Have you heard anything from the doctor yet? He said, oh, I'll give you a call tonight. This is probably very rough, but he said that he'll get back to me tonight. He'll hear back from him. When I got home, was just waiting around. We were about to have dinner. And I was about to take a bite of this spaghetti bolognese that Ames had just made for me. And Rich called, and I was like, hey, Rich, what's going on? And he had, I think you were on the line.
I was on the line.
Yeah. You were on the phone. And they were like, listen, there's something that we've found. It's not very good. I think that was your words as well.
Yeah.
It's not very good. And I think you explained it to me, actually. Do you remember what you said?
I think I pretty much had to dance around this word.
Yeah.
Because what was on the MRI was it was pretty clear what it was. And so I pretty much had to just use the words that were on the MRI. Because that's specifically what I can go off, and I'm not an oncologist, and I'm not a specialist. I'm a chiropractor. And
that was the vibe I was getting.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I had to be like, yes, this is not good. Get to the fuck to the hospital now.
Definitely came across that way.
Yeah.
But they were very good about it. Like I felt reasonably comfortable when I got off the phone. Like honestly, like obviously the whole world blacked out and I went a little bit sad. I think that was probably the only time that I had cried about it, besides for like obviously when we finally got diagnosed. We basically stopped eating. Went to Google and just started Googling all these things that could have been what it is. I think Dan Lekayev.
Yeah.
He was actually saying to me, he's like, dude, I found this thing, it's fine. Like a lot of weightlifters get it. It's like a tumor that they get from lifting heavy weights. And I was like, oh,
thanks,
fuck,
Dan.
sweet.
No, Dan.
It's fine.
Shush, Dan.
Dr. Lekayev.
It's all good. Yeah. And we were just sitting there on my bed and I was like crying.
Softening the blow. It's all good.
Yeah.
Well, Amy works in medicine, doesn't she?
Yeah. She's a pharmacist.
So okay.
Her dad actually called and she quickly explained, what was that word? What was the word?
It was a myelo. It was a sarcoma of some sort.
Yeah, right. She said whatever it was to him, and he was like, "Oh fuck!" Like his initial reaction really, really scared her. I think that, I guess that whole time was kind of a blur. But the next day we got a blood test. That doctor sent us directly to get like CT scans, PET scans. I had a bone scan, and I remember we were sort of watching, on a bone scan how you can sort of see it come down.
Yeah.
We were watching it come down, and I was like praying. I was looking at Ames. I was like, "Fuck! I hope it's just not anywhere else. Like I just can't handle it just being like in my legs, in my everywhere." And thankfully, we saw it only in my hip. And it was pretty large. It was like pretty much the size of the left side of my pelvis. It was like when it's lit up like that, it looks huge. I'm pretty sure it also infiltrated the bone. Yes. Yeah. It was, I think it was about 8 centimeters by 10 centimeters or something like that. So pretty big. And they left me in the bone scan room, and I heard everyone like talking outside, and I sort of wandered out there. I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like they must be just giving them my diagnosis without me. And I walked in, and Ames was crying, Dad was crying. And the doctor sort of turned to me and he was like, it's not good. Like, you've got a pretty aggressive form of cancer. We believe it to be bone cancer, so we need to send you for a bunch of tests and all this stuff. And I just remember at the time I was like sort of numb to it. Walked out, made a joke to Ames and Dad, and I was like, oh well, this is fucking good, sort of thing. Like they laughed, and then from that point I think I just flipped a switch and I was like, okay, I've got cancer, let's fucking get on with it, And it was like, wow. It was actually so weird because I always say to Ames, I'm like, I would way rather have been me in that situation than have been Ames and Dad, because it's like in your own head you just like, you don't know it until it happens, but you just flip a switch and it's like survival mode, and
you start worrying about the people around you a little bit. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's like everything sort of gets put into perspective, like from that point on I was like, okay, now all I've got to do is live, know. And it was kind of refreshing in a way.
It must be interesting, that moment where you're like faced with your own mortality, and you've got to face these thoughts for the first time in your life. And it's interesting, like you hear this from people who do get that news, and it's always, a lot of people will say that the first thing they think about is the people around them. Like it sounds like you did the same thing. Thought about Amy, thought about your family.
Definitely. And it's not it's you expect it to be in a very selfish way, where I would expect, for the person that I am, and I say this like all the time, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to die and then everyone else just stay here and get to like live this mad life, you know. I don't want to miss out on anything that anyone's doing. But it wasn't that when I was sick. When I was sick, it was like, it was totally selfless, and all I really wanted to do was like spend quality time with Ames and spend quality times with the people that I really wanted to see.
Living for them.
Living for them. And it was like nothing seemed to matter anymore. You know, it was like the only time that I didn't think about baseball. I didn't think about whether I'm going to be going to the CrossFit Games. And yes, that crept into it after a while, but like it was just really nice to think about nothing but surviving, to be honest. It was an escape in a way. It was amazing to get like all the support from everyone. That's the first time that I think that I've ever got that amount of overwhelming support. And if you've ever had or been through anything, whether it be like a death or anything like that, where people really, really reach out and are there for you, it was like lovely. Like I can't really explain what it feels like, but you feel the love massively.
Wow. And I think when it comes to that process of that day that you found out, because you would have had that moment of uncertainty between the scan and then that phone call. And then, although that was more answers, that would have probably made you even more uncertain. So then going from that phone call, how long was that process between the MRI and then the actual diagnosis? How long did that take?
The actual diagnosis was probably a month and a half later. And it was like
roller coaster.
I would find something out, and then they would be like, oh no, it's not that. I would find something out, and no, it's not that. Like the initial diagnosis was a myosarcoma. So muscle. Cancer in the muscle. And then they were like, oh no, looks like an osteosarcoma, cancer of the bone. He said it was like crunchy inconsistency. I remember actually after the second biopsy, because they couldn't find anything in the first one that was conclusive, the doctor was like, look, it's treatable, but it's not curable.
Oh shit.
And I don't remember saying to him, like, am I going to be able to sort of do what I do anymore? He was like, honestly, I don't think so. At this point, it's sort of looking like they needed to almost put like a prosthetic pelvis in. So whether that meant I would lose my leg, and he mentioned like the fact that they would have to like do some pretty drastic surgery to get rid of it. And I was like, fuck man, like I can't sort of, I don't think I can actually deal with that, to be honest. And I don't know how I would have dealt with that, but at least I don't have to think about it. They ended up doing another biopsy that was a bit more conclusive. They found more cancer in my chest and in my neck, which gave them the inkling that it could have been something to do with the lymph nodes. And that led them to believe that it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, which was like a fucking blessing in the scheme of things. From that point, when we actually got told that it was Hodgkin's, it felt like I was already better.
So what?
To be honest.
Wow. So the actual the final diagnosis was Hodgkin's.
Right.
So then, what's the finding in the hip then? Was that an extension of that?
Yeah. So that was essentially the secondary. The stuff in the neck. I mean, Hodgkin's typically turns up in the lymph nodes, like in the neck and the chest. So they think that it was there for so long that it had gone secondary into the hip. So essentially, that was like a stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is very different to a stage 4 breast cancer or stage 4 whatever, because it typically doesn't show in that secondary form.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was Hodgkin's lymphoma with secondary bone cancer. Was that the final? No?
I don't think bone cancer. I think it was the Hodgkin's lymphoma that showed up in a secondary area.
Location.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. So those cells have spread through
Right.
and into and affecting other cells.
Okay.
Because Hodgkin's is a blood cancer, right? So
yeah. So in other words, those cells start to multiply and infiltrate in through the muscle.
Okay.
Because they proliferate at a rate that's uncontrollable, and they don't assimilate with any of the other tissues. So he could have completely normal pelvis and a completely normal glute. And by the way, I'm a fucking chiropractor. Remember that. So in case I'm wrong, but you could have completely normal anatomy, but you can have these cells proliferate around it because it's an extension of those proliferative cells.
Right. Okay.
Gotcha.
Just in a
Sounds very
location,
right.
in a location that has nothing to do with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So then you treat it as Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it treats the whole thing.
Right. What was your treatment? What was the
So
course of it?
literally from the day that they diagnosed me with Hodgkin's, they were like, listen, like I don't think they deal with like a stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma very often, because it was almost like, let's fucking treat this thing like aggressively.
Yeah.
You're a strong, fit person.
Just zap you.
Let's just like go for it. So they put me on, I think the protocol was elevated B-cop. Do you remember?
No.
Escalated or elevated B-cop.
I have no idea what's a B-cop. Is that a type of chemo?
It's a type of chemo. So there's all these different variations and concoctions that they would come up with, but there's like different drugs like bleomycin that affect your lungs. Like there's, I guess, a bunch of other things that affect different areas. But it was started on the day that I got diagnosed. It was 3 days on, 1 day off, 1 day on. So it was like intravenous, all of it. So you go in, put your cannula in, sit there for maybe like, depending on the treatment, was like 1 to 4 or 5 hours, and they'd just continually bring in like sort of new drips and different concoctions or whatever it was. Amy or one of my parents or one of my friends or whatever would have been there with me most of the time. So it was kind of nice. It was sort of a chance to sort of chill and hang out.
Yeah.
Obviously, you feel like reasonably sick, but at that time,
were you affected much in terms of?
I think I was, honestly. I don't think I let myself think that I was, but I think that when I think back into it, I think I was reasonably sick. If I look at photos, I look like Uncle Fester.
I saw you with a few photos of you. You had no eyebrows and shit.
Yeah.
I was
quite
like,
shocking.
And now that you say Uncle Fester, I was like, oh shit, he looked like Uncle
no
Fester.
eyebrows. Seriously.
Just a really tall, jacked version of Uncle.
Right.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, like they put you on all these corticosteroids and what I was on.
Built up
at
some
the
tolerance
time.
from your Voltaren.
Oh my god, what's that stuff called? Anyway, it's like a corticosteroid they gave me, prednisone.
Oh yeah.
And my body felt like
That's probably
amazing.
worse. Oh,
like,
it felt good. Oh yeah.
Like mentally,
Superman.
stupid boy.
Yeah.
Like just like scat always, but physically like the strongest that I think that I've ever felt in my life.
So it was basically Superman pills.
Like Superman pills.
So you
like,
were training through your chemo at this point. As well?
So there was, which is very strange, I would say, but like there was times when I would go chemo, drive home, go to CrossFit Athletic,
do peak program,
do some cleans. And
right.
Because I was at that point, I was like, fuck, if it's Hodgkin's lymphoma and I can beat it, then I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Did they advise you against that, or were they?
He said train. But
right. Your definition of train might be different too.
What we were doing, you know, like it's very different. I don't think even the normal people, I guess, understand what we do on a regular basis, you know?
I like how you said we there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like me and Nick are somewhat involved in this.
Not
Yes,
that
no.
normal. So I'd go like sometimes from chemo to to training, and you'd almost feel better doing that than letting everything sort of settle in and then going to training like the next day or something, because you might feel a little bit shitty the next day.
Sure.
I sort of played around with different ways of making myself feel better mentally, like there's obviously like CBDs, THCs, all those different things to help you settle and not overthink, because I think that the chemo sort of fucked with you.
Did that play a big role in your recovery?
Yeah, I think so.
How did that help you?
You go in and out of positive and negative thought processes, and I think that I guess weed for me in general has always been something that made me think positively about everything.
Okay.
You know, I think that it made it had a really good relationship with everything that was really fun in my life up until then. So if I was ever feeling like super nauseous or whatever, I had this little vape that was like there all the time, and I would just suck on the vape, and I would just be sitting there and start to get productive and start to like write things down, start to write a diary. I did my little blog that was just talking about everything in the process, and I think that was a massive help. I actually don't think about it that often, but that writing was a big
Therapeutic.
Part of it. Yeah.
The so it helped you with your nausea, it sounded like, and it also helps you calibrate your mental state.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Definitely. Just took your mind off everything.
Did you tell your doctors and oncologists about it?
I kind of tried to get a little bit out of him. I was like, so is there any like trial marijuana things that you're going to be doing?
Have you got any plans?
And it wasn't quite.
Sign me up for all of them.
I think it's only really recently that they started doing that.
I'll be your guinea pig.
I was kind of
Do you
like,
need a guinea pig?
my wife and I were like, fuck, we could get something out of this.
Yeah.
But it wasn't at that point yet. Like, I think it is very much at that point now, and in a way, would have been cool to like maybe do it a couple of years later. But they weren't quite
came
there
too early.
yet. But he said definitely he's had some positive feedback from it. If you need to, don't worry about smoking a joint here and there. Like, it's not going to affect you negatively. If anything, it will help you to relax a little bit more and help the nausea.
So they were pretty open to it.
Pretty open to it. Like, they were completely fine with it. Like, I think in the scheme of things, that's such a small part of it. So I don't think that they're worried too much about it. More so making sure that your nutrition is on point.
Yeah.
Especially because you're going through so many, I guess, different emotions. You just don't really feel like eating a lot. You don't feel like you're used to eating the same things that you really liked before. Like, I was always craving like raw meat. Like, I would have dreams about going hunting and fucking eating it like a live deer. Like, it was the weirdest thing ever. Like, I would crave biltong all the time.
Were you high?
Go to no. Like,
Yeah.
it was
Tripping.
weird. We
Maybe you
always
were
used to talk about it, and I was like,
Wow.
there was a show on Netflix at the time, and it was all about these guys going. They like lived in Alaska or something, and they would hunt for their food, and I was like, fuck, Ames, I really want to go and fucking hunt for my food. And I was like going through this weird period.
Fascinating.
Yeah, weird. Probably
So
don't
you've
talk about that.
like it so far. It sounds like you've been through like. It sounds like you just basically got into action mode. Got into action mode. It was kind of like you skipped. Like, you didn't really have a chance to sort of sit there and worry too much about it. You just had to do it.
Yes.
But like, what was some of the? Was there any like? What sort of support did you like? What was Ames like throughout this process?
Insane. Like, I was always I was dubious. I was like, fuck, Ames, like, are you going to be able to like be selfless enough? And I know that this sounds weird, but like, are you going to be selfless enough and patient enough with me when I'm feeling like shitty, you know? Like,
sure.
I don't know if I could do it myself. If Ames was sick, I'm not sure if I could be as good as Ames was to me.
Yeah.
You know? But she was amazing. everyone was like super supportive, you know, like
Yeah.
there was obviously the rarity where people, and I find that I see it quite often, where people don't actually know how to react.
Yeah.
And it's the same with death. It's the same with people who are chronically sick. People don't know what to do to help.
Yes.
And in that sense, they pull back, and it's probably the wrong
Through
thing
fear
to
of saying
do.
the wrong thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in fear of like doing the wrong thing, they like, some people just didn't even speak to me the whole time, you know.
Yeah,
And
right.
it was like some really close people to me would have pulled back and sort of waited till it was all gone to really ask me anything, you know.
Wow.
And then there's the people that are like, if you need anything, just let me know, you know. But who the fuck's gonna let you know if they need anything? You know what I mean?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's the people that
It's-
come
right.
to your house and they bring you food, and they sort of go out of their way to do these little things that really, really you appreciate in the end, because the ones that were like, if you ever need anything, just let me know. You're like, okay, cool. That's like,
It's a courtesy,
it's almost
yeah.
just a tick the box sort of thing.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And that's made me change my way of thinking, is like, you know what, let's go grab a coffee and let's
Yeah.
have a fucking conversation. And it's happened not millions of times, but like heaps of times since I've been sick. There's people that have heard that I had cancer, that I've been through it all, and it's like, hey, what's your perspective on it? And I'll immediately just be like, let's catch up, you know, because if you don't, it's like, you're not actually helping. Like,
Yeah.
you
No.
can say whatever you want, but unless you actually experience it with them and you're like, really take the time to sort of delve deep into it, are you really helping, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I don't know that people... It might be that people's intentions are in the right place as well.
Definitely in the right place.
But yeah, like having gone through that and having the first-hand experience, that's really interesting. That like it's more about the practicality of how you can help versus the courtesy, I guess. So.
Definitely.
Were there times where you really, like, were there some dark times throughout this process?
Yeah, definitely. I think that was a lot more to do with the uncertainty. I think the fear of not being able to do what I normally do was the biggest thing. Once I got over that, the rest was pretty much like, I want to go to the CrossFit Games. And it was like, I'm going to do anything that I can to go to the CrossFit Games. As soon as I found out that treatment could work and I didn't have to get surgery, I didn't have to like have a prosthetic hip or a leg or anything like that, it was like on, you know. And because of some of the treatments, I wasn't able to do as much as I wanted to do aerobically, because there's a drug called bleomycin. It like affects your lungs and the capacity to, I guess, move red blood cells around the body and all that sort of stuff. I could be wrong, but it sounds right.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to do that, so it took a little bit to get that back at the end. But honestly, that drive just, it was enough for me, you know.
Wow.
And having the support from everyone, and I say that it's like that, and I feel bad for saying it, but like all that stuff about people wanting to help but not really doing anything, like it's still very much appreciated. Like I fucking that's what got me through it all, you know. No matter how much you helped me or how much you contacted me, anything drove the shit out of me to be what I am now, you know.
Other people.
Yeah.
It's
like
huge.
It really was. It was the support that got me through it.
Far
It's
out.
awesome.
It's warm feelings.
So if we fast forward then to some good times as well, if we could talk on maybe like remission and also you training towards the CrossFit Games.
Okay, so
So what was the feeling like when? Like, how did you finally get told that you're cancer free? Like, how long did this take?
honestly, the weirdest thing, like finished chemo in January. Sorry, not January. November. Started radiation through the whole of December, so did a month of radiation. So radiation was like an everyday thing. So you just went in, got your radiation, left. Very tiring process. I think that was the most tired that I've ever been through that whole thing. From there, we had a scan. Obviously, you have like a million PET scans throughout the whole process. They'd found after chemo that there wasn't very much left of the cancer, so that was like a really cool thing for me. And going into radiation knowing that this radiation would definitely kill it was sort of the icing on the cake. From there we went and had a PET scan. So we finished radiation on Christmas Eve, had a PET scan I think between Christmas Eve and between Christmas and New Year. Got the results. Literally, the doctor was like so nonchalant about it. He was just like, "Yep, it's all gone." And I was like, "Oh, cool."
From that bit of radiation.
Like, I was like, "There's." I think they're so desensitized to it, doctors, that I think they struggle to show like that much emotion. I don't know if it's
they're
all
IQ-driven
doctors.
people, I think, as well. Yeah.
Like, I'm sure it depends on who you've got.
Sure. Yeah.
But
It wasn't like ring a fucking bell and like we're cancer free. It was like, it's all gone. And Ames and I sort of just looked at each other and were like, okay, cool.
All right.
Wow.
Cool.
Got a hotel room in the city, celebrated. Like it was kind of like almost like a letdown, because you're just expecting this big celebration at the end, but you've been through so much that you're just like, okay, let's just like sit back, and you almost reflect on it for the next month. You're like, it takes you a while. Like once you, the same thing, if you win a grand final, if you do something huge in your life, you don't really reflect on it till maybe like a month later, when you really get a chance to think about how much you went through.
So this is now 2 years ago. Well, it would have finished 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, the games was 2018, so that was December 2017 that we finished treatment, and then we started training for the games pretty much in.
You've been training the whole time throughout.
Yeah, but like I
crazy.
didn't know whether I'd be able to.
What was your energy level like? Were you trying to burst through some serious energy dips to be able to train?
Yeah. It was hard. And I think that's contributed a lot to the person that I am now when I'm on the competition floor.
Right.
Like if I compare the feelings that I had then to how I feel now, it's not even close. Like
wow.
It's like
so when you're tired, last 2 minutes of a workout, 2 minutes is longer than it seems.
Pain tolerance is just higher.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a massive attribute, I guess.
So what goes through your head when people complain that they're tired through a workout?
I honestly, I find it hard to empathize with people that are in pain and are,
like not
I guess, that complain about things, whether it be, oh, today was a hard day, or oh, that session was really, really hard, or whatever. I find it like initially really hard to empathize, and I have to like pull myself back and be like, you know what, not everyone's like you in a way where they enjoy that sort of pain and suffering to get to that end goal.
Yes,
people are normal people, and like this is a fucking huge thing for them to be able to get to the end of that workout. And I found myself getting increasingly I guess what's a good word for it?
Frustrated?
Yeah, like frustrated about little problems. When people told me about like little things in their life, I found myself not being empathetic enough. And that wasn't a good thing for me, because I went through a stage and no one really talks about it, about, I guess, remission and the time after cancer. Like the time after cancer is so much worse than the time during cancer. I think that you go through so much like self-discovery during the cancer time, that you completely forget who you are as a person. I think that
Wow.
You mean it becomes your identity a little bit when you're going through it?
Yeah,
Shit.
I think, and then once it's all gone, like, I guess people are like, oh, he's better now. So it's like...
So it's done.
So it never happened. You know what I mean?
And so what sort of struggles have you had post-camp, like in remission?
I guess I'm a bit resentful. A bit more resentful. I think that I look back and think like I was hard done by, or I feel like I gave so much to so many things and I see nothing for it. Like, I put all that time into baseball, I put all that time into everything, and now I'm sitting here like post cancer, and I know that it's the wrong way to think, but all of that support is gone now. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like you're used to all of this love and attention, and it sounds horrible to think and say that, but when it's gone, you're just like, oh fuck, now I'm no one. You know what I mean? It's probably similar to life after sport. Like, you've got all this attention on you, and it's like, oh fuck, he's going through cancer, and it's like
it might have brought back some of those experiences for you after you had the yips and baseball finishes and
and you don't know really who you are anymore, because you've identified with this person who has cancer that's going to get through cancer. Once you get through cancer, then it's like,
so
now what?
Yeah.
So it's almost like, wow, I never really even considered this to be part of the journey, because, you know, obviously, like, you think of the journey being you achieve the end result, everyone jumps up and celebrates, except for the doctor. It was just nonchalant motherfucker. And then after that, you just sort of like, well, all this, like, you start to identify with why they're talking to you, get used to the fact that they're talking to you, and then they just disappear.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like,
and
that would be very, I would be very confused, but also completely left out and abandoned.
You do. You feel abandoned, and you almost come to terms with like the fact that you've got cancer now, and that's your life. And it was when we first got our scan that said I was all clear. I was kind of like sad in a way, because I was like, oh fuck,
now what
do I identify as?
Right.
You know?
Oh shit.
I was so happy not thinking about anything but surviving that I like sort of didn't know what to do now. It was like,
you didn't have a goal.
You know, no. I just, now I've got to find a new
goal achieved. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is fucking strange.
That is like, it's very counterintuitive, and I'm actually grappling with it right now.
I can understand it, and I think you're right, Alessio. I think the perfect analogy there is post sport. Like, it sounds like you've been through it before with baseball. You identified as a baseballer, a pitcher, and then it was all of a sudden gone. Like, similar story with cancer, I guess. You know.
Yeah, because you're motivating people and you're inspiring people, and it's all the same feelings, right? You're inspiring people as a sportsman. You're inspiring people the way that you're getting through cancer, the way that you're handling it. And I always made sure that I never showed that I was struggling, and for that reason, I think that people thought it was a semi-easy journey, because I never wanted to actually show it, but. You'd almost like I got to the end and I was like, fuck, I wish I showed that it was like a little bit harder, because it was really quite a tough experience, you know?
I can understand that.
Yeah, it's almost like there's this self-categorization of like you're self-evaluating all the time based on what other people identify you as. So it's almost like I'm categorizing myself as a cancer sufferer because this is what everyone else is looking at me as. I'm therefore achieving X, Y, Z, inspiring. I'm, empowering. They're like, in awe of me. But then as soon as that changes and shifts, that self-categorization of how I'm interpreting myself and what I mean to other people and what other people think of me has changed completely.
Yeah.
So what do they think now? And what am I supposed to think now? And who's it in relation to?
Definitely.
That makes sense.
Like, that's honestly probably the first time it's made sense in that way to me. That makes a lot of sense.
It's a thing called social identity theory.
Okay.
And self-categorization is part of that. But that's fascinating. So after I'm like into this now.
Okay.
This now is psychological. Let's go.
This is up next, Alex.
So when it comes to then the gap between So how keen were you to get into CrossFit then? Because you would have then been searching for belonging.
Yes, I was willing to do anything. Like I was putting in like a fucking shitload of work to make sure that, like, I was so naive at that time as well. I was like, fuck, I'm gonna be Rich Froning, you know. And I think that a lot of CrossFitters go through that, and they're like,
Sure.
They pick it up, they start to like have fast results, and you're like, fuck, if I keep progressing at this rate, I'm gonna be for sure
Matt Fraser,
the fittest person in the world, you know. And you don't know, like, in hindsight, you're like, fuck, it's so long to go. But what you forget is that as you get better, they're just going to continually get better as well.
Yeah,
you know? So
it's a sport of time.
Yeah,
CrossFit.
exactly. And I just sort of, I guess I took that sadness of it being over and applied it to, okay, fuck this, now I'm going to go to the games, you know?
Right.
And it was very competitive at CrossFit Athletic at the time to get into the team, and it was like between Presto and I who would be on the team. And to be honest, I think he was the better CrossFitter at the time, which sucks for me to say, but like I think I had shown at that time that I was willing to put everything on the line to get it done, you know? Yeah. And I think that was more important. That goes back to like coaches looking at someone's ability to really just dig deep, you know, rather than looking at their skill level. And
you found something that you could apply yourself 100% to now.
Yeah. No matter what, I was going to fucking kill myself to win, you know? It was like...
Which you might not have had in baseball.
No.
That sort of mentality.
I couldn't. It was like...
You hadn't gone through cancer yet.
No, like there was nothing in baseball or in any other sport that you could literally just bury yourself and be better than someone else at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's true.
It's not necessarily...
That's definitely what CrossFit allows you to, definitely allows you to do that.
There's so much skill acquisition, but in the end, if you have a fucking stronger mind than someone else, you're going to beat them.
They're going to beat them. That's right. Yeah.
And if you keep at it for long enough, you're eventually going to have those skills, and that mind's going to take you so much further than.
And all you needed to do is probably think back every time you were in pain. Think back to just lifting up a barbell whilst you're in the middle of chemo with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and just think about how freaking tired you were then. It's like, shut up, you pussy. Get on with it.
Like if you saw me run 100 meters when I was during chemo, you would probably understand why running 100 meters now is a fucking dream.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's like
you would have looked like a tall Uncle Fester.
I was in the car looking at the footage of it before, actually, and it was just me like leaning forward. We were in Noosa and I was training, and I was just like leaning forward, trying to like run.
Right.
And like out of breath, like literally just moving one foot in front of the other was like
just stopping yourself from falling over.
Pain, lungs burning. But
wow.
So it just means a bit more to you when you're able to do things like that these days.
Yeah.
So did you get there?
To the games?
Yeah.
Yeah,
buddy.
That whole process was the best thing I've ever done, easily.
Wow.
You know, like from doing the Open in March, was it?
Yeah.
So like 2 months after chemo, it wasn't my best Open result, but thankfully the team had a really good result. So like as a collective, CrossFit Athletics sort of qualified for the regionals. I had to sort of fight for my spot at regionals with Presto, which was probably what drove me to be so good in the first place. Regionals was insane, like surreal. Came fourth at regionals, qualified for the games. Living on Voltarens, like post chemo and post radiation, the worst pain ever. Like
really?
Knee pain, hip pain.
Just
like
having built
all
tissue.
All the normal cells have been destroyed.
Yeah, and that's what it felt like.
And you're there rebuilding them.
Lungs came back reasonably quick, but fuck, that sucked. Building that fitness back up was terrible. But that could have also been just CrossFit in general.
Yes,
was very painful.
That feeling. Yeah.
Like the worm, all that sort of stuff. But like I said, like that training during chemo put everything into perspective, and nothing was really that hard.
Yeah.
Until like compared to all of that training, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And your body had been put through the ringer psychologically. You'd been put through the ringer for the last year. That's going to play a massive part on your performance. So.
Yeah.
So now that you've gone to the CrossFit Games, and you know, obviously it's another thing altogether to ask how you guys went at the CrossFit Games. It's kind of like, I feel like it's actually kind of almost irrelevant because you made it to the games.
It is.
Unless you podium, it's kind of like...
It shouldn't be irrelevant. I think that we should place more emphasis on how you go there, because I think that it's becoming more and more achievable. And I think with the old structure coming back, I think it actually is achievable, and I truly believe that we can go back to the games.
Yep.
Whether it be with anyone. But honestly, for me, that was just the best thing, was just going.
So once you've gone, you've come back. So the same question comes up again. So now what?
Go to the games again.
Again? Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. Well, he ain't going anywhere, so you might as well keep going.
No, I would, like, Tommy and I talk about it on a daily basis. We're like, we're going to the fucking games. Like, we're willing to do anything to go to the games. Obviously.
So
that's your goal now.
Yeah.
So this is what I find interesting, right? Like, every sport that you've played, a team sport, you've had to be the... Do you have a coach now?
We're doing Mayhem at the moment.
Okay, so it's not like you have a coach that has to select you into your team, right?
Dream.
And this is exactly, and this is the thing, right? Like, all your life you've been hampered by your choices, the coach's choice as to whether you'll be in there or not. You know, you finally break through that barrier of being selected inside the team because of your grit and your hard work, and now you're in a position where actually now you're in control of your outcome because
feels good.
You got to be in the top 5 regardless. So that so that feels good, huh?
Yeah, it feels good that everything you put in, you get out.
Yeah,
like there is no question. There's like, even when we're competing, it's like if you're the strongest, you'll win those strength events no matter what. If you're, and I think that myself as a person is a good competitor. I think that I'm not necessarily the most skillful person. I'm not necessarily the best athlete on the floor, but I'm willing to go that extra mile to bury myself to the point where I'm going to either win or at least leave it all out there. You know what I mean?
And that's exactly what you need on the CrossFit Games platform.
And I think
it's all heart.
As CrossFit as you go or become more elite in CrossFit, it becomes a lot less about skill acquisition, obviously. Like, everyone has a certain amount of skill once you get to a certain point. It comes down to a lot of effort and obviously a little bit of genetics as well. But like you said, you get out what you put in.
I remember when I was treating there at the CrossFit Games, and 2015, this was when they had Murph, the individuals had Murph as event 3.
It was hot.
It was extremely hot that day, and Murph was put on. It was a 35-degree day, and Murph was at 12 p.m.
Yeah,
and there was a significant difference between the conversations and the words that the top 15 were saying versus the bottom 30.
Right.
The bottom 30 were complaining about their biceps, about their hands, about whatever they were complaining about. Legitimately, like they were sore. But no more sore than the top 15.
Yep.
It comes down to your mind and that's when at 2015 games, that's when I realized my manual treatment had less impact than I was hoping. I probably have a 5% actual impact and probably a 95% psychological impact.
Of course.
It is a 100% or 90% mind game. You've done the work. You are strong enough, fit enough. There's obviously a physical difference between Matt Fraser, Rich Froning, and Alessio Angelucci. But, what?
For now.
About 6 foot.
Yes. And that's because they're 4 foot nothing, and you're a pretty tall, jacked, dominating human. And it's kind of like there's that physical capability is much smaller than the mental capability at that arena.
So you find, like, when you're in that situation, when you're at the games treating athletes, the most important thing is the conversation that you have with them.
Most definitely. Definitely. It's got everything to do with downplay everything unless it's a rule out.
Yeah.
Like
I wouldn't even like have thought that was a thing. Like
I don't think anyone would. Like outside of practitioners, it's
there are neurophysiological things that you can achieve with some manual therapy,
of course.
but most of it's the chit chat.
But those
like the
physical
little
changes,
word in the ear,
the physical changes when you've got 2 minutes at a CrossFit event. I mean, there's going to be very minimal, right? Like as you said, Nico. So
and that makes sense. Like how you probably see me less than anyone. Like I don't ever get manual treatment. I never go to the physio. I never go to the chiro. I honestly convince myself that whatever injury or niggle that there is, it's going to get better. And I'll almost internally start to do little things to move towards making that feel better, whether it be I guess adjusting positions or really just discovering your own body.
You just find your own way through it.
You really do.
Yeah. Like if your hip pain was in fact glute pain, that's manageable.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
For sure.
You don't need it rubbed every 2 seconds.
Yeah,
No.
and you've probably built that awareness around your body to a point where you can identify when something needs to come see Nick or I or something like that. But and then built that awareness with your body where you do know how to manage your niggles, which is built through experience as well.
I honestly think that sometimes when people come in and need to get some treatment, the question is when should I come in and get treatment? When you don't know how to apply common sense anymore.
Yeah,
it's like I don't actually know what to do.
Yeah,
it's like
Yeah.
that's a good time.
Come in with a problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not something that
I just need.
it hurts when I lie face down when I sleep. So, well, then lie on your back, man. That's pretty straightforward common sense answer.
Yeah.
And I make light of it, but I hear that a lot. And so if you can apply common sense to your issue, then and it's physical, like you're saying, it's gonna get better.
Yeah.
It's not cancer.
Yeah, for sure.
What has cancer taught you?
Ooh.
Pause. Come back to the question.
Yeah.
I'll ask a different question. What's your gym called?
Tribe.
Yeah.
Tribe headquarters.
And it's only been there for...
It's been there for 5 months. We got the keys 6 months ago. Functional fitness gym, not a CrossFit gym. Little bit of CrossFit options, but trying to stay away from the CrossFit vibe. And by vibe, I mean all of those predisposed thoughts about CrossFit and how the whole thing is perceived. We're basically just sort of trying to get a bunch of like-minded people in the same room and trying to make them better physically every day, better mentally every day, teach them how to move properly, how to be out of pain every day. Also, a big part of it is helping them to manage stress levels, knowing what their daily routine entails, and knowing that we don't necessarily need to kill them every day.
Yep.
Is a big thing for us. I think a lot of gyms out there are doing their clients an disservice
Sure.
by
Smashing them every day.
just putting together these programs that are designed to make you feel like you just got flogged. But they don't realize that person just worked fucking a 12-hour day, and I guess they don't realize that stress is stress, and it's not like you can't differentiate between physical stress and mental stress. It's all
sure.
It's all the
That
same
would be the
thing,
last thing I would want after a big day here,
Yeah.
to go and get flogged.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
And
guess
then you got to back it up tomorrow.
I guess we are really looking to change that perception of functional fitness and CrossFit and that it's all about going there and killing yourself for no real cause.
So you've called it Tribe, and I can hazard a guess why. But in terms of like your the way a lot of people were able to help and support you through sport, whether that was your parents at the beginning, getting an offer as a college student, going to America, going to Italy with Amy through cancer. Like, all these people have supported you throughout. Not saying you haven't done anything for them. That's not what I'm saying. But the amount that an athlete consumes so that they can just do what they're good at is disproportionate to what they can do in return. And so now, with all that history, how does having your own tribe make you feel? What does it mean to you?
And we touched on it a little bit before. I feel like that's what you're trying to get at here. I like that.
I work in reverse.
Basically, what I was getting at before is that if you gave me the option right now to pick my life now and the life that I thought I wanted, that Major League Baseball, let's just put a number on it. Let's say 5 years in the big leagues, or this life right now, regardless of whether that 5 years was worth $100 million or not, I would pick this life.
Wow.
10 times over, 10 million times over.
It's massive.
Like, reward is unexplainable. Like, seeing like the amount of people come into our gym, good people, like real people come into our gym on a daily basis, is so much more rewarding than that personal, I guess, goal being reached. You know what it feels like to win a grand final. You win the grand final, it's like awesome. Wake up the next day, now what?
Sure.
You know what I mean? This is an ongoing thing that's going to be in my life forever.
It's not finite
and
at
I
all.
just like, I can't even believe and I can't even fathom, and we look at each other across the room, Tommy and I, on a daily basis, and we're like, what the fuck is going on? Because it's like, it's that amazing, and it's that important to us to keep doing what we're doing, because we have an identity without it being selfish.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
I understand.
Sounds like what fills your cup, at least. I hate that saying, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Weird.
Well, yeah. Or at least you get more out of now, like other people's success a little bit more than your own personal success.
For sure. Yeah. And putting everything that we've learned into other people and doing it in a way where we can help them skip the bullshit that we had to go through to get there. If that makes sense. Like, there's so many little hacks in fitness and in life and in your mental approach to everything that I wish that I would have been told about when I was going through all that sort of stuff. You know, when I was an athlete, I feel like our coaches did us a disservice by not helping us mentally, by not giving us all those little tiny tools that we know now to put into play, you know?
It is most definitely the biggest form of contribution to be able to give back to people what you received. And whether that's a mentorship, whether that's an opportunity, for me, it's that what you're doing right now is basically leading people through what you've already been through, which is exactly what a leader should be doing.
100%.
So well done, mate.
It's awesome, mate.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
So, I guess for everyone listening, where can people reach you? Where's Tribe?
Tribe is in Brookvale. It's at 218 Harbord Road. If you want to reach me, I'd prefer you just came in and spoke to me, to be honest. I think the gym sells itself. I don't need to go through a hard sales pitch. I think that if you experience our classes, I think that if you, I guess, get along with us from the beginning, you'll enjoy your experience. You know, I think that people that have to hard sell their gym don't believe in their product. And I think if you don't believe in your product, you can see it very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Love that.
I think we believe wholeheartedly in what we have to offer. And if you want to learn something, come along.
It's awesome, dude. Love it.
Man. That was good.
Thanks so much,
No worries.
Alessio.
Appreciate it, brother.
Cheers.
All right, so that concludes season 2 of the Balance Experience podcast. What a ride it's been.
Mate, we had some cracker stories.
There were some great stories this season. What was your favourite?
Oh, I think for me, it's gotta be.
It's hard to say a favourite.
Oh,
when
they're
there's so many
so
stories.
different.
I know.
I've probably got I've learned a fair bit.
Well, let's say, what was your favourite podcast, not your favourite story?
I think Andrew Ponce's takes the cake for me, mate. Yeah, I think that guy, that he's had everyone try, like, all sorts of things, external factors try and literally burn him down.
Yeah.
And to his story was ultimate resiliency.
Mm-hmm.
But Dimo as well, like, obviously I was very, well, like we all were, but I was very close to his story progress step by step. Yeah, they were probably my pick of the bunch, I reckon.
Yeah, I'd have to say the same. I think Andrew and Dimo, all our guests, I guess, this season were really good, and everyone had a great story to tell. But I think, yeah, I mean, that was just incredible how those boys, I guess, bounced back from what they've been through. You know, you can only imagine, you know, what it's like to go through something like that.
Well,
but
of course, yeah.
I think as well, like some of the more informative ones we had this season, you know, Ella, Rach, you know, talking about their areas of expertise being female fitness and you know, obviously pregnancy, childbirth training and things like that. So
yeah, I think that there's definitely some. There were definitely some points where I think you could probably talk all day on any of those topics, especially when it comes to childbirth or when it comes to even just, you know, whether setting a goal is a healthy thing to do. That we talked about with Ella. So I think there were some really important insights there, and like Alessio's as well, just where he just kept on having setbacks, you know, almost there, and the yips. Yeah, I didn't even know what that was, and now I do. Yeah,
for sure. No, there's some good stories. I've enjoyed it, Nico.
Yeah,
it's been good.
Another wild ride. What we want to do is thank you so much for listening and being part of it. There's no point having a podcast without listeners, and hopefully we've been able to educate and inspire you and entertain you along the way.
And yeah, as we said, we've loved doing every minute of it. Every minute of it. I can't get my words out. Every minute of it.
Every minute of every day, every minute.
This season, and I guess now it's looking forward to season 3. That sounds weird to say.
That sounds weird. Yeah.
We've come a long way.
Well, we're not even close to even thinking about that.
No.
So what we're going to do is once again take this opportunity to thank you. Our Balance Experience group, the Balance Experience, is continuing to run. And so you're welcome to keep on joining and tagging along, asking us some questions and connecting with us on and offline. But yeah, in the meantime, we'll get busy preparing for season 3 and
Check this Facebook page as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys want to reach out, as Nico said, reach us there, reach us on our Instagrams, and yeah, that's us signing out.
Or we'll see you in the clinic.
Yeah, and
whichever
come
one.
visit us in the clinic if you want.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
We've got 4 locations in Sydney and one in Brisbane. So hopefully we can look after you in one way, shape or form.
For sure. All right, guys.
All right, signing off.